The King family is made up of Mum Rachel, Dad Ben, and their 3 children, Jensen, William, and Darcy. Ben has a condition called epilepsy. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder characterised by seizures or fits as a result of disruption to the brain's electrical impulses.
So when I found out that I was pregnant with Jensen, it did cross my mind, could he potentially have epilepsy, because obviously Ben has epilepsy. But because there isn't really any immediate other family with epilepsy, then I thought that the chances may be quite slim. So when Jensen was about 8 months old, I noticed that he started doing like a shudder in his car seat, and it was only a couple of times where his head would slightly shudder and he just didn't look right, didn't look with it. And then it was a couple of weeks after that we were, because I was living at my mum and dad's at the time with Ben. He was playing in his playroom, and he was sat up and he was leaning against the stair gate in his playroom, and all of a sudden I looked at him and I noticed that he'd gone blue and he'd fallen back in his eyes from the back of his head, and it was having a seizure. Now, I'd never up until that point seen a seizure, so I didn't know that that's what was happening. And if I'm being honest, me and Ben actually thought that we'd lost Jensen that day, because it was so frightening. He was completely limp and floppy. Obviously he was fitting, so he was jerking to begin with, and then when he went limp and floppy, his breathing was so shallow that we honestly thought the worst, and it was so frightening. We'll never forget that day. Once Jensen had the seizure, we obviously phoned an ambulance, and then they took him into hospital. They tend to say that you've got to have 2 seizures or more before they start really investigating epilepsy. So Jensen had obviously already been having a few little things that I didn't think looked right, but I thought they could just be normal baby movements. But then it wasn't long after that he had another one, and that's when the ball started rolling really, and he had an EEG to check the electrons on his brain, and they actually caught abnormal activity on his brain, which then also pointed to epilepsy. And then they also checked, did an MRI scan just to rule out any growth on his brain, just to check it was nothing more sinister. And then the ball started rolling from there really, and he started on medication from quite an early age. When William was born, I noticed that he started making funny movements with his head that I hadn't seen a child make before, especially with my history of working in a nursery. So I've seen obviously a lot of children from birth to 5. And because I think I was aware of the epilepsy in the family, I pinpointed an issue early on, and I do honestly think that if I hadn't had Jensen that had epilepsy, I don't think that William would have been diagnosed at all at that age. I think it would have been many months down the line, to be honest. When William started doing these what I would call vibratory head movements, I contacted the consultant, Jensen's consultant, Dr. Allison, who was absolutely fantastic, and she said if I was concerned, because obviously she knew us really well, to bring William down.
In the 10 days William was in hospital, he had 113 seizures, and from 7 weeks old was on medication.
Now, we did speak to a few people about having a 3rd child, and when we found out we were having a girl, we were under the impression that it was less likely that she would have epilepsy, because apparently it's possibly higher in boys. But to be honest with you, even if somebody told me that there'd be 100% chance that a 3rd child would have epilepsy, I wouldn't have let it stop me from having children.
Liz Champion is a paediatric epilepsy nurse who has worked with the King family for 4 years.
I have had 5 years of working solely with children with epilepsy, although I have been a paediatric nurse for 30 years. The King family are the only ones who all the siblings have got epilepsy. So for me, it's quite rare, although I have got family members, as in, i.e. the parents have got epilepsy. So it could be hereditary or genetic. But if you look at the research that goes on, it could be either or it could just be bad luck, really, in a way. There are multiple things that you need to look out for if you think a child has got epilepsy. If they're doing things out of the ordinary, So any shakes, tics, vacant episodes.
With Darcy and William, the head tends to shake, their arms tend to shake. Or your head may shake. What I call it is vibrate. I think vibrate is quite a good word really to use with this.
Seven out of 10 children will grow out of their epilepsy as they get older. We get them seizure-free on medication for 2 years, and then we wind the medication off. And like I say, 7 out of 10 children, they will have grown out of their epilepsy. It does sometimes depend on what type of epilepsy they have, and also how quickly that we've managed to get them controlled. I think it's just a raising awareness of epilepsy, because epilepsy's still got a stigma about it, because people get scared of seizures because they look quite scary. And I think if we can people make more aware that, you know, these children are normal little human beings and the parents are normal little human beings as well, and give them some more support and awareness.
Epilepsy isn't the only thing the family has to deal with. William also has a condition called pica.
When William was about 2, we started noticing that he was lying on the floor, trying to bite the rug and bite the carpet, and gnawing at the carpet. So we mentioned to the consultant, but we also took him to the doctors, who mentioned a condition called pica. This is where children and also adults have a condition where they crave non-food substances. So eventually William was diagnosed with the condition, and he now has a chew buddy that he carries with him all the time. That if he feels that he needs to bite something, if he has the urge to bite something or becomes anxious, then he uses this chew buddy as a way of kind of relief for him. So with William's pica, we've actually spent a couple of £1,000 replacing mattresses. He'll bite his foam mattresses. We've tried to replace the materials to get different ones. Also car seats. When he's sat in his car seat, he tends to pull the material that's behind his head, which can be the polystyrene or the foam. Again, Velcro's another one. So Velcro's on shoes. He's bitten before, and we've laminated all through our house as well to keep him safe.
A key part of the King's lives is medication, and making sure all the children get their medication isn't an easy task.
Jensen is on a medication that is dissolvable tablets. At the moment, for his age, he would not be able to swallow tablets like ourselves. So what we had to come up with an idea of a way of making sure that Jensen took his tablets every day. Obviously for a child this is difficult, so we came up with an idea of making a game for Jensen to make it fun. So whoever can finish the drinks fastest obviously wins the race, and every day Jensen obviously does finish his race first, which is fantastic because he's obviously getting the medication that he needs.
Rachel finds time in her busy life to raise awareness of the children's condition through the charity Epilepsy Action.
I thought about fundraising for Epilepsy Action, and we started off doing a cake sale, and we raised about £50 on the first sale to begin with, which I thought was fantastic. As time got on, I started noticing that, especially with having the other children diagnosed as well, that it was actually I'm not just helping the other people from the charity by raising money, it was also helping me and giving me a sideline, and it took my mind off always being at hospital appointments and being in hospital, and obviously seeing the children have the seizures. It was something for me to look forward to doing, to fundraise. And since then, since my first £50 cake sale, it's now got to where we've raised over £10,000. But it does really, really help me, and it's almost a support network for me. And I've found that I've had hundreds of people on board now helping with the different charities that we raise money for. With the fundraising and raising awareness, it's something that is a massive sideline for me and a massive coping mechanism. So hopefully within years to come, it'll continue to help families in the same position as us, and hopefully continue to help them get the support that they also need. I always watch 3 children, and all 3 children have got epilepsy, and it's just something that we deal with on a daily basis, and we want them to have the best lives that they can with it.